All right, we will begin our work session. You've recorded who all's here in the meeting. Okay, so we got everybody that we know each other. All right, we can begin. Do you want to hear from them anything, or do we want to just start, or does y'all have anything you want to ask us or tell us, or do you want to?
I mean, if they have some thoughts and ideas, I'm open for that.
We can.
And I guess I might, if you don't mind, I might want to start off with a question, really.
Okay, go on.
Because with this piece of property, it hasn't been that long ago that it was attempted to be rezoned, and so and that's some of my thoughts that are going on right now is the fact that looking at all of this from what I'm considering the 40,000-foot view, it has changed around, it has moved, it bounced around here and there, and it was set up for this zoning. What is it? 90, whatever year it was, and then they came back and they changed up some of the streets on it. And of course, we tried to rechange the zoning just recently, and so it's a decent size of property and a very in the middle of Prattville, and so we need to try to make a very good decision for the future here. And looking over some of the history of all of this, the way some of the streets have lined up, if we had this 40,000-foot view at that point in time, I think we'd have had a lot more alignment, proper alignment of the streets. That's not y'all's fault on that, but this is what the product we have to work with. And I'm trying to make certain that the decision we make today is going to be one that will be positive for the city of Prattville. So I mentioned before, we're here to service our customers, the citizens of Prattville, service the businesses of Prattville, which is I'm considering you guys, but we also, the third part of that entity, we have to look out for the municipality of Prattville. And what I've seen is in this one little stretch of property here on McQueen Smith, I don't know if the city of Prattville itself is not, in my opinion, has not really been looked after to its fullest. Because if we had, we wouldn't have a traffic light in the parking lot of what used to be Office Depot. I can see the one where it goes into Walmart because it's sort of a feeder there. But and as you move on down the Cornegay Drive, it doesn't line up for what's the one over there beside Larry Puckett's? Cobbs Ford Lane. If they had been lined up, if there's so many of them had been lined up, then I don't think we'd be having this meeting. So really what I would like to do, is there was somebody who thinks that they have a solution for us to actually help our traffic patterns that, I threw out some that were pretty, I might just call them radical, to run. I've heard it called Heather Drive, right there beside Russell. I don't know if it's Heather Drive or not.
I don't think it is.
But the lane beside Russell's of going, through that parking lot, which is probably where that traffic light should have been, but it is what it is now. But do you guys have any thoughts that you might throw before us before we start talking some more? And I guess one other question thrown in here too, and this hopefully it's not muddy in the water. I think at the last one we also talked about a well tail, and before this meeting is over, if we have time, I'd like to talk about that more today, or that might be at the next appropriate meeting. But
Mr. Chair, Mayor, I apologize for interrupting. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make sure that we were clear that as a work session, y'all can discuss, y'all can go back and forth over ideas, but there's really no deliberation down to an agreement.
Okay.
Y'all can't in this meeting make that determination. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. All right. I'm trying to see what the name of that was. It was not.
On the original plat, it was to be Heather. Heather was to come out on Cobbs Ford Road, and Kathy was to come out where Heather is now coming out, or where is proposed to now come out.
It was
It's on there.
Isn't?
Yeah, it's
No.
right.
No, but on the I was pulling up on the computer earlier today, and it was named something else on Bing or on Google Maps. It had it as something completely different. All right. Is the city going to pick up the bill for moving the road and lining the headlight? I mean, what are we asking them to do as far as other than building the road that's going out Heather? I mean, if they're building the road that goes out Heather, that makes sense because that other property is going to be alienated. Mm-hmm. I personally would like, if they're going to cut off that entrance, I'd like to see that entrance used at some point in the future. But are we going to surrender the right of way to build that road by Russell Do-It Center, whatever we call it, Heather or whatever?
Why don't we just call that Russell Lane?
Russell Lane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Russell Lane.
Yeah.
Well, there again, I think gathering information here today, I think we sort of need to try to figure out what a future plan for the other piece of the puzzle here, other piece of the project, other piece of the property over here that's not resident, that's not R5 or R4.
Yeah, it's multiple.
Okay.
There'll be multiple zonings on that parcel that is in Rochester Hills. There's going to be some R3 left over, some R5 left over, and B2. Yes, and B2 left over.
A lot of B2.
And a small sliver of R4. We don't have a future use. Needless to say, we're a multifamily developer. I mean, there's no question that we'd like to put a senior deal in there. That would be our vision. But at this point, do we believe that we'll ever get that zone R4 for multifamily at this point? We don't. I mean, so the question is, what do we think it's going to be? We don't really know. I mean, I know what I'd like it to be as a group because we're a multifamily developer. So it'd be low density multifamily, but I don't have any. We can't get Heather Drive. We can't get Heather Drive in more or less the rezoning. I mean, that's and maybe someday after what we've built and the neighborhood gets used to what we're doing and we have a name for ourselves, maybe we would do that. But it could be R5. We can put more housing in there, or sell it off to a single family housing. I mean, that would be an appropriate use.
And the property south of the Heather Drive extension would be, I mean, it contemplated to be single family. And that's kind of an obvious use, but that's what we got contemplated for that property. I think there's 7 lots that are zoned R3 and maybe 9 that are zoned R5 south of the Heather Drive extension.
Yeah.
So
Let's pull that over, Scott. Let's just pull that over if you need to.
Yeah. All right, I see.
So what Aaron has contemplated is this property, the Heather Drive extension, we've obviously thought that property was, the way the sketch plan was done 20 plus years ago, we thought that this property would be developed for multifamily. And we were hopeful, it made sense to us that this property would also be rezoned and develop multifamily because it just, we felt like a good use for the neighborhood. It would keep more businesses. This is zone B2 now. A portion of this is zone B2, so it could obviously be developed for hotels, commercial use, convenience store. I mean, there are a lot of different uses that this property could be developed for. But we felt like, Aaron and I felt like that it was, we actually thought it was zoned multifamily when we first started reviewing this property. But anyway, this property we would retain as part of this development. It would be single family. And so we also had always, felt like some point in the future, because the neighborhood was out of compliance, I guess, based on certain fire code or items. So I think that connection, we've always contemplated would have to be made at some point, and that would really finish out the neighborhood, so that, that you've got this single family, it would just be continued, same, type schemes in this area. And then we felt like multifamily worked well with the neighborhood. And just to kind of, just to step back a little bit, when we started really working with this group, we didn't just go under contract with this company to come in and build whatever. I mean, we went through a lot of due diligence. Our owners went through a lot of due diligence to look at their reputation, what they typically develop, and even look at some of the communities that they've developed, multifamily communities in other areas. And we were really duly impressed with what they were, what they were doing. So we kind of did our homework on their organization, prior to going under contract with them. The other thing that we liked about what they were proposing, not just their development, we felt like what they were, the buildings and the, and really the design, the style, and what they've done in the past was very nice. But the density of what they were developing was also significantly less dense than what could be developed on that site, on this site. So they're doing, basically a half to a third less units than say another developer could do. I know they'd have to have a secondary entrance, but another developer probably could and would do if they came in and tried to develop the same parcel. I mean, so they could do 2.5 times more units on the site than what this group would propose. So that answers your question.
It also doesn't really answer. I mean, and there's some obvious use for some of the single-family lots, but the remainder portion up in this area here, in 3 years would we come in and ask for a rezoning? Probably. But at that point, if we got turned down, we would just hire Scott to remarket it to something that was something that the city would want, whether that's single family or some type of commercial business. I mean, there's a lot of risk in that for us to hold on to a piece of property that has multiple zonings that we don't have a lot of use for, but it's in the middle of Prattville. It's for something.
I think I'd rather.
So that doesn't help you for future use, but from our standpoint, we're not exactly sure, given we've been down here 4 or 5 times, just trying to get how to drive it and forget. I can't imagine what a rezoning would look like. Getting through planning and zoning and then having to come to you and it's city council.
Well, of course, nobody can predict the future, but, listening to you guys, it sounds like you, as previously you came before this body wanting to extend,
right.
More of the apartments and everything else. And I can see you guys coming back again, and it might not be the same group of people up here. And so then they're going back through the same things, and they're saying, why didn't they look and try to find this other, another way to alleviate some of this traffic that's going to be created by this.
Right.
And that's really what I'm trying to do here, and trying to come up with some feasible options. A lot of the challenges they have are because of the contour of the land. I think I've been told there's a big, nice waterfall back up in there, something along that line. And of course, there again, if we'd had some more planning, the streets would have lined up. I've even talked with, I've talked with people in the fire department, planning department, engineering department. I've got quite a bit of literature over here, on different things, but and I don't have the answer for this, but I really feel like that we need some kind of connection to Cobb's Ford, and especially with the thought process is that somebody, more than likely, is going to be coming back to this body. It might not be the same people, but to this body in the future, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years, and going to probably be asking to be rezoned for more parking.
Are you wanting to say, now again, there's going to be money involved in crossing to get out Cobb's Ford. It's going, unless they can work around that drainage ditch or that hole behind Russell. And they do have the property to develop going out Heather. Are you wanting them to situate the buildings that they have so where there's still the right of way to leave that area? Do you want them to, are you saying you want them to go ahead and have that built as well as the other exit, or do you want to have it for future development where it's there, where we can use it in 10 years if we need it?
It might be a little of all of that.
I gave you a lot of options there, but
I mean, because
I would like to see the entrance or the right of way being there so where we can develop it. But I think they have been down here 3 or 4 times. They have that to develop. They've got lot 2, 3, and I would call this lot 5, lot 4, and lot 5. Let's just say that on the south side of D Drive, that's 5 separate lots that would be developed. And if we went out, if they just went out Russell, then that somewhat alienates these other lots.
And I don't think we need to just
Right.
Russell.
Okay.
That doesn't even need
Well,
to be
then,
contained at all.
okay. Well, let's say they're
That
going
needs to be where it's proposed.
okay.
A tie-in to Cobb's Ford would be a great thing to have,
Right.
but not in lieu of Heather making that loop.
Right. Are we going to say, let's leave it all open so we can push we can futurely push some traffic out to Cobb's Ford? Or are we going to say we really want that? I would like to say let them build the apartments or however that range the apartments where we can have that exit out there at some point in the future and build
access from the apartments or access for a future public road that connects to Heather Drive, so it's
Connects to the apartment complex, which you could snake around to.
Yeah. But there would be a way, I mean, if somebody really wanted to go through the apartment complex to get out, I don't know how you would stop them if there was going to be that was the only problem. That would be it might be better for a public road versus, I don't know.
Coming into the apartment.
Yeah, it'd be going to the apartment complex.
That's as far as you need to look at it from.
From our standpoint, the development cost of a Cobb's Ford entrance and a Heather Drive.
It would be substantial, but I would say, would you want them to be able to go that way?
What would be the additional cost of making the connection to Cobb's Ford over and above what you normally are planning?
The expense of Cobb's Ford?
Just making the Cobb's Ford connection to the apartments.
About $200,000.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
So the rest of the money you're going to spend regardless. Now the question boils down to where's the $200,000 coming from? If we say we would really like to have this, can we work with you on this issue? So really, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, financially.
That part.
Right.
Yeah, financially not
Just
feasible
go
for
ahead
us
and
to
cut
build.
the chase. Here's what we're talking about. We're talking about $200,000 if you want another connection.
Right.
That's really what this.
Mr. President. Yes. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sit down here in the dark. Okay,
Yeah,
I agree totally. We're not talking about Heather. Everybody's on board with Heather. I'm sorry, I thought that was on 5 roads. What I would like, I think everybody's on board with Heather. That's not the question is the connectivity to get some of the traffic off McQueen Smith, which would be Cobb's Ford. Let's just play devil advocate. If the city was willing to kick in some skin on this and help y'all with the other connectivity, the 200,000, would that be feasible for y'all if we were able to kick in some money on it?
The cost of Heather itself?
No, not Heather.
I know what you're
you're
I'm just saying the cost of Heather
Heather's
is brutal.
Right, Heather's going to have to happen. We know that's got, irregardless, it's going to
And
happen.
we know that going in. I mean, Joel, when I first met Joel before the very first time, Joel said Heather Drive's got to come in. So, but Heather Drive is brutally expensive, as you guys can imagine.
But your building expense, can y'all afford another 100,000? That's what that's what this meeting comes down
But
to.
it
Can you afford another 100,000?
We can't go too far into the
Let's-
negotiate.
Yeah.
That goes a little.
Where we're going with that comment.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to run anybody off here, but what Mr. Bowles is beginning to talk about sounds very much like
Negotiating.
negotiation for one, and secondly,
We
making
can-
some agreement to get to some
Yeah, we can't.
results.
Right.
So it is okay for you to discuss whether or not some assistance might be helpful as to whether or not that might be a contingency of some type of approval. You'd be very careful on that.
Well, all I need to know is before we start working on the city council side of things, there's no reason for us to work on it if it's not even feasible, is what I'm asking. Is that okay question?
It is fine, and all I'm really trying to do is make sure that we don't
Make agreements.
exactly.
Right, no, I'm just, all
Yeah.
I'm trying to do is, before I start running this squirrel down, is it feasible is what I'm asking, okay?
I think they would have to have an opportunity to, well, I'll see what their answer is.
Let me ask before we answer that. Would it interest you, would you think it makes sense to have this connection to Russell Way or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Maybe not kick in when this was developed,
Mm-hmm.
but if this gets developed, then maybe that would be,
Public access.
or an access.
Yes.
Would that make sense?
That makes sense to me, because that would be saying that you're going to leave that access open to the development of
No, it's a good
the other parcel.
I mean, that would give the opportunity for another development, another source of income to help pay for that at that time.
And I think instead of an oil change place and a B1, whatever's allowed in B1, car lot, whatever, what all can be B1, B2? Is it B1 or B2 right there? It's B2. Okay. It's pretty wide open. It could be any type of anything. Senior living might be more palatable to the community.
Right, that's what we were thinking initially. The reason you said that was because they just gave you the cost of the road.
Yeah.
I know it's expensive,
And
believe me, I know.
I mean, yeah,
I imagine.
It's astronomical.
It's $500,000.
$500,000.
Yeah.
I can imagine, and that's why, yes, I would like to see an exit out Cobb's Ford, but I would like to see it open to an exit, and us finish Heather Drive, and it be there for future use.
Can I ask engineering question, or Joel? If we do pull Heather all the way down, what's the chances of putting a red light there to ease the buses in and out? Yes,
At Seasons Drive.
Seasons Drive entrance.
The likelihood of that actually having a warrant, which is what you would do, when you look at whether or not a traffic signal is needed, you're looking at what engineers call a warrant study.
Mm-hmm.
And several things go into that, accidents, the number of, the amount of delay goes into that. And you're unlikely to get, what's going to happen is when you put in the Heather Drive extension, both the Terra intersection and Seasons, neither one of them is going to really warrant a traffic signal because you're creating some relief. Okay. Right now, the main reason the Terra has any real issues is what's generated on the west side, not necessarily within Pecan Ridge. But the Pecan Ridge folks are affected. Once they have another access into Pecan Ridge, then they don't have to go to that intersection. They'll choose to go based on the direction they need to go. If they're going across Dean and Pratt, they might still go to Terra, but if they're headed to north to Cos Ford, they're likely to go out Seasons. And this is the reason when we talk connectivity, we're always talking about giving the driver the option. Okay, right now, everybody in Pecan Ridge has no option but to come back out Terra. Once you make that connection, drivers are pretty smart. They make decisions based on their needs when they're given those opportunities. If you look at the west side of McQueen Smith, if you live on Seasons Drive, for instance, let's just say right there close to this intersection we're talking about, you have multiple options to get in and out of that neighborhood. And most of those, you don't hear complaints about that. That is a much denser neighborhood than we're talking about here in Pecan Ridge. They have options. They use those. What we're really trying to talk about here is adding options back for Pecan Ridge. And back as far back as '97, when the sketch plan was redone, it was understood that this connection would be required and needed. So I'm glad to hear everybody continuing to talk about that. I have one question. Are you talking about, Scott, reserving right-of-way now with this subdivision, but no road being built? So that's what I hear you say. Okay. But with the understanding that if the planning commission were to make that a contingency of approval for any future development of the lots to the west of that drive, or the remainder of the property would require some construction.
I mean, I threw that out. I should have. It's up to.
We appreciate Aronoff spending our money.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand what was being offered.
It was a good idea. It still is a good idea. I think that coming in with the Cobb's Ford entrance at a future date where we could lay off some of that cost, a portion of it, onto the other development is something we could help do. But it's hard to, and I know we can have this discussion, doesn't mean anything, but it's certainly a lot easier for us to say, yeah, we could help on that if we knew what that zoning was going to be. Now, we can't do quid pro quo, and we have to come through the planning and zoning with the city council. So I've been through that process before. That there's no guarantees, but it would be nice, from a 40,000, 35,000 foot, and say, look, this is the path we're headed, and yes, we would come in and help build that, and maybe with Aronoff's help and the city's help, build that Cobb's Ford direct connection. But it would be nice to know that we had something to connect to, except for four different types of zonings. Well, really only two for us: the R3, R5, B2, and R4. But with a $500,000 extension on Heather Drive, another $50,000 is, and I appreciate the city coming and saying, hey, we'll pay for part of it.
We didn't actually say that. We just asked.
Yeah, I understand that. It's tough. Our budget's tight on this. 96 units. If we were spreading this out over 250 units, it'd be a lot easier.
It might be easier in the future to get the R4 if the neighborhood understood that a lot of the traffic wasn't coming into their neighborhood. That would be a bonus for you guys, because if you have that entrance and all of a sudden all that traffic's not coming into their neighborhood, that eases their concerns.
But my other concern there is when they said it would be open to the public, or just that development and the other development, if that's where the other development would go. I don't want the neighborhood going through. I don't know. I know you don't want the neighborhood going through there probably and snaking through, but
no more than the neighborhood wants them to go
right.
through their neighborhood.
I know, and I don't know if I think of public or just for that neighborhood, just for the.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we talked about this in that last meeting.
Yeah.
In the last meeting, I think there will be some people. If McQueen Smith is back, the
Cobb's Ford McQueen Smith intersection, is that backed up, we'll have some people that will snake through it even though, because they won't do it. Our
Which
rep,
would alleviate some of the congestion if you had a major incident.
Yeah.
right, except for it's coming through our private,
Sure.
it's coming
Right.
through our private property, it's a public process. But our residents, unless, I just don't see our residents ever.
Well, now here's one of the things I do see. I do see McQueen Smith being widened. You pretty much guaranteed that. I think you can also be guaranteed there will be a traffic light there at Terra.
Right.
Okay, as that thing, everything does build up at certain times of the day or evening or whatever it might be, certain times, you're going to have people gravitating toward that traffic light. So they will be coming through that subdivision, some shape, form, or fashion, at some point in time.
If there's a light at Terra.
And I think you can be guaranteed McQueen Smith is going to be widened, and I don't think it's far-fetched to say there will be a traffic light there at Terra. Now, is it in my lifetime? I don't know. I hope so. But see, that's another part of the equation, too.
Well, and I guess that brings up a question that probably needs to be looked at is that would have been the case even if they built the original layout. The city has accepted for a long time some level of R4 in this location and believed it to be appropriate. So that's one thing that we need to be mindful of is that was the layout here in this. That was the planned layout, regardless of whether there was a connection back to Cosford or not. There was some understanding by the developer that there would be apartment traffic in the neighborhood. And some of that I guess I'm asking to make sure we understand that this R4 was a component of this development. It was intended to be. Now, I usually tell folks, build your R4 first so that folks are aware of what they're moving into, but that's not the way it happened. So,
Well, when that original plan was done, I'm sorry, Mayor, when it was originally planned for R4, at that same point in time, there was a plan for a connection to Cobb's Ford. You can't take half of it and say, well, it was understood that this was going to be here whether this happens or not, because it was all planned at the same time. I'm just being the devil's advocate on that one. I mean, one shakes the hand of the other. It's not
true, and I guess that's where the Planning Commission dissected this pretty heavily in 1997 when they looked at whether or not to omit that drive. I guess what I was saying, Dallas, is that even if you had to drive back Cosford Road, you are going to have, if I'm going to make a movement to the south, I'm going to come through the neighborhood to get to Terra Drive if there's traffic like that. I'm not going to go to Cosford Road, come back around. You're going to have some traffic that comes through the neighborhood. So,
Oh, yeah.
and that was my only point.
The other thing I was looking at, too, is that, you and I have discussed this pretty much over in Pecan Ridge. We have about 100 residential units inside that apartment complex. We're going to have almost 100 residential units. We're requiring two ways in and out of the Pecan Ridge, but I feel like we're only having one way out of the apartment, and I know code is, because I believe me, I pulled some codes in here and there and everything else, and I think this is definitely going to be a lesson learned that how important planning is, and not only on this piece of property, up and down McQueen Smith. And the other day I did mention Greencrest, so this isn't just a snapshot of this area; it's other areas around Prattville too. But and I don't know that we are going to find the silver bullet that's going to take care of this one, but it's the future is. I think I feel pretty confident McQueen Smith will be widened. There will be a traffic light at Terra. I'm pretty confident that eventually somebody's going to come back and want some of this rezoned additional. Whether it happens or not, I'm not as certain on it as I am McQueen Smith. that's one reason why I'm trying to make certain we're doing everything we can to try to get this thing right.
Oh, we appreciate that.
I got another question. Talking about getting back to the money aspect. When y'all pulled your figures, I'm sure y'all did them a while back when gas was at $3 or $4 a gallon. Now, I do know it's petroleum based, so as price gases go up, so does the construction material. Now that gas prices are falling, will that offset some of the building?
This is current cost. This is just current cost, right?
Yeah.
As of last week.
That's last week. So, but my question to y'all's $500,000, was it figured back in the summer when everything was at $4?
No, it was just,
A couple of weeks ago?
Just
Okay.
last week.
Yeah.
and I don't think it's the asphalt, is it? It's not the asphalt, it's partial. It has some impact. I don't know that it's as much as what the
Yeah, that, I found it.
rates are.
I wish it did, but I found that.
For asphalt, it's not the gas itself, it's a derivative of the whole process. A small derivative, it has not changed.
Okay.
And therefore, actually, they keep saying the price is going up on that. Imagine that,
Hmm.
when it comes to asphalt.
Well,
Well, since Mr. Gillen did speak over there, any words of wisdom on the map?
We beat this dead horse a good bit.
yeah.
I think we've had a good plan from the beginning, and the request to go to Copsville Road is problematic in itself. I mean, you just say build a road, but when you're talking with your engineering department and planning, it is problematic to send traffic out next to the Russell Dewitt Center to go into Copsville Road. You just, where do you want your problem to be? You're going to have problems on Queensmith and or Copsville Road at certain times of the day. We've all driven through it. Personally, I think the Heather Drive is the safest route. Crossing the creek and going out Copsville Road is somewhat problematic, but that's some decisions y'all are going to have to make. But they do have a right to get to their site. I don't know if I simplified that.
Yeah, and the traffic, it's we're talking 30 units at peak time. Is that correct, Joel? Did you leave on us? Yeah, 30 units at peak time. It's not what we're building now is not going to significantly increase the whole situation. And if it's like some of the other apartment buildings I've been around, you just don't see that many people coming and going. I mean, I might just be there at the wrong times.
I was thinking about 40 something, wasn't it?
Did I say 30?
Excuse me, you're looking at apartments are peak out at 41,
Okay.
peak in at 46. And that, those peak times are AM and PM, of course. Just for comparison, there was some discussion about the density of this. This is 20 acres here. I'm sorry, new aerials are coming this year, thankfully. This is 2010 aerial, but this piece 20 acres here is the Villas at Home Place.
Mm-hmm.
That's roughly 240, 250 units, and this is a 10-acre site at 96 units. So they could, as has been talked about, they could increase the density on this. And certainly, we'd be looking at some other development could provide a design that they have the right to more units than they're actually building. Just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Yeah, but the one down here you're talking about has a way, 2 ways in and out.
Correct, but what we're really looking at is these are subdivision streets. Today they're built. They look like they're the only thing on that street, but they are built as subdivision streets. This is a access, and there's planned to be basically a loop access around that. And this street is to extend further into the Home Place development. So in essence, this development is
early. Whereas, think about it in context, this would be very similar to the way this is laid out. Street coming off the main road, it comes in, and that's the access to it. There's going to be residential that comes in behind this. This is just first, whereas this is last. And this, the concepts are not that different. Yes, there are two access points. That was absolutely necessary due to the size of the apartment complex.
Which on our current piece of property up here, in the future, if it ever does have more units put on there, then at what number is it going to have another entrance, exit?
Well, as far as I can tell, the only way they could add more units to this site would be to go vertical, because they are essentially building-wise maxing out the usable space. With a different design, somebody could probably get more units in there. If you're talking about, what we'd be looking at is this is one development, this would be another. They're separate lots, and so they would stand on their own. That's something you just have to look at. I'll give you an example. If you look at a senior apartment complex, such as the one on Wetumpka Street, it has one way in and out. It generates very little in the way of traffic. There was never any consideration even for a deceleration lane at that location because of the projected traffic. So if they come back with something like that has a very low impact, then it might be appropriate. Might not even really, you would do it, if you did a similar traffic study as this, it may not even raise an eyebrow because you're looking at roughly 150 units in the subdivision already. And I guess that's the other question you look at is you make this connection. Let's just take this out. Let's just take the apartments out of the equation. If you made this connection back here, you've got 150 units that have the option of using it. Nobody seems to be concerned about 150 units.
No, I mean, actually, that should have been done by Aronoff years ago.
I'm going to jump on Scott too and say that's a great idea. It should have been. Just
But, it really should have been. It would have been if they did the next development. And that's where we are now. We are at the next development. Anyway, I've talked too much.
No, you're good.
I'm out of time here. So.
Yeah. Well, I think we, did we get anyone? I think we got somewhere. We got a,
Can I?
yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it would make that idea to reserve that for the future when this is developed makes any sense?
I think it does.
Yeah,
I do.
don't see how you cannot do that, to be honest.
I mean, I want that left open to future development.
And to also have the ability to connect into the existing apartment complex if zoning changes and we wind up expanding in, whether it be 5 years from now or 25 years from now. Because like you said, we've for so long we've taken a blinders approach to this little piece of property, and we need to think about it and the ability of what happens later on. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, with the problem we're having now.
Do you want Mayor, do you want it to connect now? Do y'all want it to the?
I'd rather see it connect now, one way or the other. My main concern is just, I realize we're gonna dump traffic somewhere. But if we split it, we're putting half the traffic on one lane and half the traffic on the other. And both streets are absorbing the problem instead of one street absorbing the problem. That's been my whole argument. And two, we're sort of going against our rules by having two. Everything I've been told since I've been on this board, you have to have two entrances. Why all of a sudden we're going to put a set of apartments in and only have one entrance?
Because of the density, right?
There are some exceptions allowed that they currently are using, an exception that is allowed by the code under Appendix D.
Which is the number of units, or what's the
Based on the
number of units?
sprinkler exceptions, things like that.
And so just
But
as,
having said that, that doesn't mean it's always the best idea. It's allowable, but it's not, and going along with what you said, in this case, more is better. Sometimes less is more, but in this case, more is better from an access standpoint for emergency purposes. But just because that's what works well for me doesn't always appease somebody else either. I mean, you gotta look at it.
well, they might need more.
Scott, are you talking, just to make sure I understand, you're talking about leaving the comms port entry open that would allow people to come in at some point at a future date to into Rochester and also access the other property.
Is that stub out?
Yeah, just dead end.
Is it stubbed out? It just dead ends.
Right, but is it public? I mean, are we even allowed to, or is that owned by like
I think
Russell?
it's owned by Aeronaut. I could be
It's
wrong.
stubbed out. It is a road. I think it's public.
I don't
You know,
think the city,
It's not, is it not?
There's some question that Greg and I were debating back and forth as to whether or not it was actually ever platted, and that's something we'll find out.
okay.
So we're not sure.
Not sure whether that's correct.
I usually park my truck and my trailer there when I go get stuff.
Dump stuff.
Yeah, going into the Russell parking
I
lot with my
don't think they'll
trailer.
give you a ticket.
But
Your
that's
shopping
right.
carts we saw in
Yeah.
Denver Beach.
But that's why, I mean, they park their vehicles on it, but I don't know that.
Because that would be an issue going out there if that's not.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'd have to find out if it,
That's easily found out.
yeah.
Okay.
So we're meeting again on Thursday,
Yes.
and we're gonna have a vote like one way or the other.
Right.
Do we have any idea what we're gonna vote on? I mean, I know what we're voting, but
Well, at that time, I'd like to discuss that so-called whale tail. To me, I think that, again, we're trying to potentially fix something by piecemealing, and,
well, we're happy. The whale
We don't
tail.
have to.
I don't care about the whale tail.
well, I mean, I don't know
I
what
mean,
this
that's
body
a-
is going to do, but, to me, that so-called whale tail, I think, that's where in my opinion, nothing but my opinion, where we have sort of gotten in trouble, now let me rephrase that. We've gotten to where we are today is because sometimes we've tried to tweak things instead of going really by.
The well tail was the effort of.
That was their effort to
Push traffic.
to push traffic.
We could still build our exit with Greg, we could still build our exit with a whale tail, but line it up more with D, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're happy. We don't have
Yeah,
to have that.
I mean, they were trying to be more,
The way that,
help us out.
Right.
we did
But
a couple of-
if you don't want us to,
Yes, and I totally agree. You guys are trying to appease, but sometimes, and
Yeah.
again,
Unintended
Well,
consequences.
the
Correct.
whale tail built properly, 99% of the people coming out of the apartment complex will take a right because they have to take a right. They're not going to do this stuff and get up there and look around to see if the policeman's around and do this left-hand turn to go back towards D. So, I mean, the whale tail will serve its purpose, but you'll have a few offenders to that, obviously.
and what about the big equipment,
Well,
garbage trucks?
you'll be able to get in and out normally, and the buses will have to take the right just like everybody else.
And that's where you run into the unintended consequences, sure.
Yep.
That's when you're
But
reducing
that's
curves.
the schools adjusting to that effect and running the right route. So that's their last pickup is at the apartment complex.
I still think our residents with or without the whale tail are gonna take a right and go down and have to drive anyway.
I think you're right.
It's a half a mile short.
I agree. All right, we adjourn. We got another meeting coming in here. I don't know if we got anything. Well,
Is it still on the table for future use? Parcel B, or is that?
I think that's something we can entertain. I don't know if we can make any decisions. We can't say yay or nay on. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt my feelings for that part. There's some other issues, but I think that's something that can be looked at. Yes.
It'll get voted on. Either we'll get have the drive extension with some other modifications on Thursday, I assume, or it'll get either voted up or voted down, one way or the other.
Yes, sir. We'll have to. But, I mean, header drive extension, yes, and then if there's another entrance as well. But then there would be,
The vote actually on just the Heather Drive part, or is it on everything? What is
from
that
my
coming
understanding,
up Thursday?
Joel, would it be just the header drive, or would we have to say uncontingent, another entrance into Cobb's Ford would be on the table too?
Okay.
Or
What's coming up Thursday?
Well, what's before you is what they originally asked for. There's never been a formal amendment to that application. So what you have before you,
Dallas, is this layout right here. Okay, so this is,
which is basically an extension of Heather Drive and the lot layout that you see before you. That's what was read into the resolution. If there's going to be modifications to that, then those have to be presented as amendments, and those amendments have to be voted on. You don't have to. You
So
don't.
an amendment could be brought up for
Absolutely.
leaving this open as a future connection for whatever the case may be.
correct.
And we'll want that well described if that's going to be something brought up. So.
Right, I'm just saying that's when that would be
That would be
appropriate to do.
And whether or not we have a
Exactly.
well tail or not, we would say yes, yay with the well tail, or nay without it. Okay. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.